Developed by Slant Games and Capcom, Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City released in North America on the 20th of March 2012, before releasing across the rest of the world by April of the same year. Launching on PS3, Xbox 360 and PC, it offered a different experience from typical Resident Evils, giving us the chance to play as the bad guys to cover up Umbrella's mess during the events of Resident Evil 2 and 3. And it does this in a multiplayer squad-based shooter. I'm not sure if it was the cool design of the protagonists, or the chance to play through a classic setting in a new way, but whatever the reason, the game went on to sell exceptionally well, netting sales of 3.2 million. Critically, it didn't fare so well, sitting at a Metacritic of 52%, and earning itself a whole host of backlash from the fans, who often regard it as one of the worst titles in the entire series. My experience with the game is a weird one. Upon starting these reviews, I'd have sworn blindly I'd never played it, but in exploring my trophy list, it turns out, yeah, I have. My in-game records show I had nearly 5 hours clocked up in the campaign, beating the veteran mode playing exclusively Beltway.
Damn boy, he's thick!
It's 10 years later, and my lack of memory means one of two things. Either the years of alcohol abuse and old age are taking their toll, or this game is so horrendous I buried it deep down in my psyche as a defense mechanism. Regardless, I wasn't expecting great things from this entry. Now this review I'm going to detail what works, what doesn't, and ultimately, is it as bad as everyone makes out? As usual, I'm going to split this into plot, gameplay and presentation. Now let's dive in. September 1998. The Umbrella security service Delta Team are sent into William Birkin's lab to assist Hunk and his Alpha team in retrieving the G-Virus before Birkin sells it to the US government. The mission, as we all know, goes off without a hitch.
Knock, knock.
From here, Delta Team find themselves on cleanup duty. Time is ticking, and Umbrella's dirty secrets are about to go public. Told over 7 missions, you move from objective to objective, destroying evidence, cutting communications, and generally covering Umbrella's arse. It's a non-canon story that puts the Wolfpack in the thick of events that happen in the main chronology, having run-ins with tyrants, Nikolai, and even Nemesis himself. The issue is, the entire plot is completely throwaway. It all seems very samey. You go here, destroy this file, kill this, and Umbrella will let you go home. Until they don't, and you have to do it all over again. The story culminates with an encounter with everyone's favourite poster boy, Leon S. Kennedy. You're presented with a choice: kill Leon, tying up any loose ends and get in Umbrella's good books, or let him live and try to extort them for all the danger pay you've run up over the course of the last 4 hours. It's a cool ending, which turns the final stage into a 2v2 fight with your own team to determine the outcome, but it's not satisfying. The journey you've been on with Delta Team hasn't brought you together. You don't get a chance to even remotely know any of them. No backstories, no inter-character dynamics or witty banter, they just exist. And for me, this is a real shame. They could have elevated a by-the-numbers campaign to bring life into the characters and make you want to replay with different dynamics to see how stories shape and unfold, but instead, they took the easy way out and made this campaign as forgettable as possible. Now it's worth saying here, this is the base game. If you wanted to pay £16, you can play another half of the game as US Spec Ops with their own characters and story. But I'm not paying that. I've reviewed this entire series based on what's packed in the box, and I'm not changing that for this. Operation Raccoon City is a squad-based shooter. You and 3 other players can dive into the hellscape of the titular city and start blasting. The Wolfpack is made up of 6 characters, each with their own strengths to add to the wider team. Lupo is the assault character, with perks that enable her to have unlimited ammo or be able to tank multiple hits for a short duration. Vector is Recon, giving him the ability to go invisible or to stay off enemy minimaps. Beltway is the demolitions expert, able to set up trip mines and throw remote controlled explosives. Berta is the medic, who can boost your team's accuracy, reload and movement speed with her stims. Spectre is the surveillance expert, giving him access to view all items on the minimap and even see opponents through walls. And finally, Four Eyes. She's the field scientist. An expert in virology, she can lure the infected to certain areas and even take them over, controlling them in the battlefield. Each character feels unique to use. They aren't created equally, but each one has their uses, and as part of a team, it's awesome to get everyone together playing to their strengths. Speaking of, I'm playing on the PS3, 10 years after it launched, and I found people drop in and out of my campaign all the way through, and that just blew my mind. I imagined this game would be a ghost town, but no. The versus mode in particular was surprisingly active. It didn't take more than a few minutes to find games, and to be honest, there is a reason for this. This game is fun to play.
A what?
There's two words I'd use to describe it. Dumb fun. There's nothing that this game does exceptionally well. It's not deep. It's not really challenging. It's mindless. But shooting waves and waves of infected doesn't really get old. The mission structure sucks. The story that tries to move the plot onward sucks. But shooting stuff,
I like it a lot.
Now, when I was without any human players, the game definitely takes a hit. The CPU teammates are essentially useless. I couldn't trust any of them to kill their way out of an old folks home, let alone survive the zombie apocalypse. One hunter would often wipe out my entire team, and they go down without too much issue. But as soon as you get Big Dong Charlie 69 drop into your game, you know you're gonna have some fun, and this is amplified the more players that join. Operation Raccoon City is a simple loop that's been effective since the dawn of time. You complete a mission and get ranked. This rank then determines your experience, which you can then use to upgrade your character to unlock higher levels of passive and active perks, and purchase more powerful weapons. These weapons are varied, with a total of 5 different weapon classes for your primary, and each category having at least 4 weapons to choose from. It gives you plenty of choice to save up for the gun you want, with each one having its own stats on damage, accuracy, rate of fire, etc. It's a nice system that'll keep you coming back to get the gun that's just out of arm's reach. It's a shame then that this system undermines exploration. Across the map you'll find cases off the beaten path which contain special weapons, such as a grenade launcher or flamethrower. Each of these are devastating. The ammo is limited and can't be refilled, so you'll want to hold on to it for a fierce encounter. The issue is, taking this replaces your primary weapon. If you've been saving up for that top tier arse-clapping machine gun, and then swap it out for a grenade launcher, you'll have to wait till the next mission to get it back in your hands, forcing you to switch to whatever basic gun is lying around in the environment as soon as you run out of ammo, as you can't go back to previous areas to reclaim that arse-clapper 5000. Now in the early game, I wouldn't think twice swapping out my assault rifle for a grenade launcher, but towards the end, when I'd save up for my Ravager, it was a different story. The difference between a basic gun and the more expensive variants is worlds apart. It's not worth the momentary boost in firepower by taking a special gun and holding on to it. Sure, you could splurge all your ammo and go back for your gun within the same area, but then when a boss appears, you'll be kicking yourself. I honestly can't understand it. Why not give the player the ability to hold 3 weapons, a special, primary, and a secondary? This would solve the dilemma immediately and create a real urgency to thoroughly check all side doors for a possible boost. Hell, if I had my way, I'd want a weapon wheel, so I can pick up any old gun lying about and use what I wanted when the situation allowed. But I can see why this would damage teamwork. After all, having specialized roles for situations makes sense, but the special weapons eating primaries feels like an oversight that harms the experience. Now while I'm on the negatives, there's one final one I'll talk about here: the movement. Snapping to cover feels responsive and works as intended. It's extremely important when engaging with the human adversaries across the game, but why can't you vault over it? There's nothing more annoying than diving into cover, putting the hurt on an enemy, wanting to move up and having to run around the cover you're using. Now, I'm not talking about 6-foot high crates. I'm talking waist height. For a bunch of highly trained Umbrella operatives, I never would have guessed 3-foot cover would be their biggest weakness. It's no wonder Umbrella is trying its hardest to keep them in the city. As stated earlier, Operation Raccoon City released in 2012, but you'd never guess it visually. This game looks rough. Environments and enemies alike look muddy. It blows my mind that this game was released in the same year as Resident Evil 6. The budget was obviously lower, but for how short the experience is, it really isn't excusable for it to look the way it does. The core cast of characters are all designed excellently to show you their traits, and they look cool enough. But outside of that, just look at this tyrant. My guy looks like he was ripped directly from the PS2. The budget woes extend to the enemy variety. I swear, a crowd of zombies is made up of 4 different models endlessly repeated, and then when they want to add a bit of spice in the mix, they chuck a Crimson Head in, which is just a red skin variant of one of those 4 types. Oh, and the enemy soldiers. Jesus, they're all just in uniform with literally no difference to them whatsoever. It just feels lazy. Now, I can't even rate any performances in this game, because there really isn't any. You get faceless dialogue from an Umbrella commander giving you your next objective, while a map screen zooms into a location, and this dialogue is delivered with as much pizzazz as your wife telling you how her day went. Cutscenes are few, and when they appear in the game, they lack any impact. And it's the same for the music. The RPD theme is a nice touch, but apart from that, it's just mindless noise, with little to no memorable traits. Now, there is a couple of positives here, a few diamonds in all the shit. Firstly, the guns all sound impactful. No matter which tool you use for the job, they all have meat to them, and this really helps the gunplay feel engaging, even if you're hitting them with nothing more than a pea shooter. And speaking of filling zombies with loads of ammunition, they show damage. Now, of course, it's nothing insane, but blasting off zombies' arms, legs and heads is as much fun as it could possibly be, given the scraps Slant had to work with. I went into this full of trepidation. I knew Operation Raccoon City wasn't going to be great, but I'd psyched myself up for this to be a total trash fire, and it's not. It's genuinely fun to play, and I can see why it has a dedicated group of players that still fire it up some 10 years later. Now, will I become one of them? Hell no. I had fun for the 4 hours it took me to beat the campaign, but there's nothing here that I'll remember in another 10 years. It's an okay game, but that's it. It doesn't break new ground, it doesn't widen the lore, it doesn't even get cover-based shooting right, but it does create some dumb fun, where you and a few buddies could fire up and be done by the end of the night. And that's it for this review. If you enjoyed the video, put a like on it, and consider subscribing to the channel for more Resident Evil content. I try to respond to everyone, so put your thoughts on the game in the comments below, and we can discuss it. Up next on the channel is Umbrella Corps, before I revisit where it all began in Resident Evil Director's Cut. Now, if you still want more from me, then check out my podcast, In PS We Trust. It's a PlayStation podcast where me and my co-host crack a few beers and discuss the latest news, rumours and hype for all things PlayStation. I'll have links in the description. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. See ya.